Hello, everybody, and welcome back here about another BSN Network episode today. Today is Tuesday, June 21st. Hope everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Is, in fact, another BSN Network podcast here today. A lot to get to today on the program. A lot of sports on last night. You had hockey on. The Lightning win a game, so it's a 2-1 series lead for the Avalanche. And, it was a good game by the Lightning. That looked like the Lightning team that we saw the past 2 years win the Cup. The Lightning team we saw in Game 1 and 2 was similar to the Lightning team we saw in Game 1 and 2 against the New York Rangers. So it's going to be interesting now to see how Colorado responds, because if they lose Game 4, now that series is right back up in the air, and it would be a pivotal Game 5 back in Denver. If you can win, Game 4 and you take a 3-1 series lead back to Denver, you're in a good spot if you're Colorado. But Colorado cannot fall into the same hole that they fell into like the Rangers did when they lost both in Tampa, and then that made Game 5 a must-win, because you can't go back to Game 6 down in the series back to Tampa, because that is a very tough place to play. So a good win last night for the Lightning. A very dominant victory. It's been lopsided. Darcy Kemper got taken out. Francois got put in. So now you wonder where Colorado goes for Game 4 and the rest of the series. I'd assume they probably go back to Darcy Kemper. But it definitely creates some interesting storylines and some interesting headlines in terms of where they go with the goaltending. So a very good win last night for the Lightning to make it a series. Now it's, you can't go down 3-0. Now you're up, you're down 2-1. You still got a lot of work to do, but you definitely make it a series. And, make it a little more even now. So, good win last night for the Lightning. Hoping the Avalanche still pull it out. Don't want to see the Lightning win. I know I'm anti-history, winning back-to-back for the first time in a long time. But I can't root for a team that knocked my team out of it. So, Yankees also got the win last night. Very, very exciting and tense win. It was not one of those games where, as a Yankee fan, you're sitting back and, in the ninth inning with your you're sitting back just enjoying an 8-0 victory. No, last night it was intense, and it was 2-0 going into the bottom of the eighth. Garrett Cole had a no-hitter through 7 innings. He allowed a hit, and then they took him out after he got the next out, which Judge made a phenomenal play in center. And then craziness happened. So we're going to get to that game here in a little bit, but the Yankees got the win. It wasn't easy. It was close. It was tough. It was a very gritty, tough game, but the Yankees did what they needed to do, and that's what makes this Yankee team so good, is the wins like that. Mets also got the win yesterday as well, 6-0. Dominated the Marlins, did what they needed to do. They weren't smashing the ball, but they weren't smashing the baseball all over the ball field, but they got the hits when they needed to get them. They took some of the walks when they needed them, and they got runs, and they scored 6, and their offense and their pitching was great. David Peterson getting things started, going all the way into the bullpen. Another shutout for the Mets. So, Yankees today, Game 3 of a 3-game set against the Rays, and the Mets open up a short interleague series, 2-game set in Houston against the Astros starting tonight. And then after that, Houston will get on a plane and go to New York to go play the Yankees. So they're playing a Met team, New York baseball team at home, and then they got to get on a plane and play a New York baseball team away. So pretty interesting there. 6 straight days for them actually playing New York, which is right now is a scary thought, considering the Yankees and Mets are both dominating baseball right now, with them being the 2 best records in all of baseball. So anyway, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. We're going to get to the Yankees reaching 50 wins. We're going to talk a little bit about last night's game and in the season as a whole, give you a little bit of a preview for kind of the rest of the schedule here in the month of June. Yankees got a couple big games coming up, a couple big series. They also have a couple series where they should be able to take care of business. And it's kind of an interesting schedule coming up in terms of how things play out the rest of June and into July. We're going to talk about their season up to this point, and also give you a little bit of history. Some of the fastest teams to reach 50 wins, how they fared in the postseason, and give you a little bit of that, because I'll tell you what, teams that start off with 50 wins fast, history tells us it's usually a pretty successful year, so we'll get to that. I also want to get to Max Scherzer and his injury update. He has a rehab start scheduled for today, and he is expected to pitch Sunday against the Marlins in Miami if everything goes well today with the rehab start. So if you're a New York Met fan today, you are hoping that the rehab start goes well and that he is pitching back in Miami against the Marlins for his first start back, and you hope he's healthy the rest of the way for the New York Mets. So a big, big boost to the rotation for the New York Mets if Scherzer's coming back. and we will see how that rehab start goes today. We'll also get to the New York sports update and finish things off. Yankees, Mets tonight. Avalanche, Lightning on a day off. They'll be back in action, I believe, Game 4 is tomorrow, back in Tampa. And, so a lot to get to today. With all that being said, this is the BSN podcast. And let's get right into it. So, Yankees got the win last night, 4-2. It was a close game. It wasn't one of these, 8-0 blowouts or 5-1 games where you're just waiting for it to be over at that point. Last night was close, and last night was basically a nothing happening until the final 3 innings of the game. It was not much offense other than the first inning. Yankees got a run in the first. Rizzo hit a home run, a long, long home run. And after that, there was no scoring until the 7th inning. Yankees then scored again. Glaber with a big hit, big double. I talked about him yesterday. He continues to come up in big spots and big moments of the game. Yesterday, he went 1 for 4 as well. And he's batting now .267 on the season. So he's been great this year. He's been a big key for us, and he continues to get big hits and big moments. Did that again yesterday. And, you obviously had, then it's 2-0, and then you go into the bottom. And Cole pitched great yesterday. Cole yesterday looked like the Garrett Cole that we all expect. And he was dominant yesterday. He left 7 1/3 innings pitched. 1 hit, 1 runner. Now that runner was the 1 hit he let up. Clay Holmes then came in, that run then scored. So that was not a run that he actually, that was his runner. Clay Holmes, he scored on Clay Holmes. So that was that. It wasn't like Garrett Cole let up a home run or something, but that was his runner, so it counts toward his hit run. 3 walks, 12 strikeouts, 111 pitches, 71 strikes, and an ERA now of 3.14. It was great. That Garrett Cole last night was phenomenal. Going up and down the Rays lineup, striking out. 12 strikeouts last night for Garrett Cole. And Garrett Cole's having a phenomenal season. He's having a season up to his standards. Whatever you want to look at, however you want to look at it, he is. And last night, yet again, was a vintage Garrett Cole start. High strikeouts, getting guys looking, getting guys swinging, swinging through the fastball, 98, 99 up on the radar gun, going deep into a game, into the 8th inning, having a no-hitter. Going into the 8th inning, he was 6 outs away, couldn't get it, but a phenomenal start last night for Garrett Cole, and this pitching staff continues to dominate. You had Sevy on Sunday, who pitched well, wasn't phenomenal, but the bullpen hurt him a little bit, wasn't able to pick up the win. Yankees weren't able to get the win. But in the first 2 games of that Toronto series, pitching stepping up big time. You can make the argument, and yet again it showed last night, for all 5 pitchers to be all-stars at the All-Star game. And it's crazy. You really could. You can make the case for all 5 of them. Sure, some of them have a stronger case than others, like Nasty Nestor and Garrett Cole, really strong cases. Tyone as well. Monty and Sevy, too. That's really how it is. It really is wild what this pitching staff can do on a night-in and night-out basis. And last night, you needed that from Cole because the day before, the bullpen had to go a little bit, had to be used up a little bit. There was definitely some innings that needed to be eaten up in that bullpen. Now, Peralta pitched on Sunday through 20 pitches. He threw again yesterday. So, obviously, he went back-to-back days. He'll have a day off today without a doubt. I don't see them throwing Peralta in there today, but he stepped up in a big spot. And Clay Holmes showed yesterday that he was human. But Garrett Cole, you needed that start, especially coming off of that game on Sunday where you allowed a lot of runs. You had the game and the bullpen where they were used a little bit more than maybe they're used to being used. Garrett Cole stepped up in a big way yesterday against a division opponent in a big game, coming off of a loss, did what he needed to do. And Holmes showed that he was human, right? Allowing those 2 runs, one of them being Cole's run, but the other one being his. And then the Yankees step up in the top of the 9th and score 2 more. In the bottom of the 9th, things got a little hairy in the bottom of the 9th, but the Yankees were able to get the job done. And that just shows you the difference in this team. Last year's team, that is a loss. Yankees probably tie the game, and you probably look at it as either a loss because either they tie it and they lose in the 9th, or they don't, or it's like a 2-2 game and they either score a run and then they blow it in the 9th, or they don't score at all and the Rays hit a walk-off in the 9th. That's really how it is. That's how last year's team was. This year's team, they're going to win these games. They're going to win these close games. They're built for these big moments. They make They make the plays they need to make. And it was a rare error by LeMahieu. But look, Peralta stepped up, got a big strikeout, then got a pop-out in the outfield, which I got to admit, I don't know if anybody else, but that pop-up felt like that thing was up there for an hour. That thing felt like I was up. That thing felt longer than the actual game itself. When that ball is hit and you see all three guys going for it, and you're thinking to yourself, geez, 2 outs, guys are going. So you know 1 run's going to lead score, which is going to obviously make it a 4-3 game, and there's a possibility runner on first is going to get the third or possibly home, depending on how long it takes for them to get the ball in. And then Hicks comes in and makes the play, bending down, it's like in a squat position and just grabs in his glove. And then you had the great play in right by Gallo when him and Glaber were going at it. Gallo kind of just making a catch like this. So some big plays on defense, which definitely stepped up and won that game. So great win yesterday for the Yankees. And as a whole this season, like I've said, they've been great. And I think Yankee fans got to realize, right? I know in the heat of the moment, and I get like this too. In the games, you're intense, right? And, when you get wins, you're pumped up, you're happy about the win, but it's like on to the next game. Now let's win the next game. And that's how it is over the course of a 162-game season. Unless if it's a historic thing, a win's a win, you move on and you get ready for the next game. And sometimes it's hard to really enjoy wins sometimes, but you got to enjoy this because this is history we're watching. I mean, this is something with this New York Yankee team that you have not seen since the 98 Yankees and something we have not seen in terms of baseball in a really long time with a team this dominant, this good, and just finding so many different ways to win. Last year's team was so one-dimensional. If they didn't hit home runs, they were losing baseball games. This year's team, that's not the case. That's not the case with this year's team. What did they have? Last night they had 1 home run in the top of the first. They still found a way to win. Last year's team, that solo home run in the top of the first would have been their only run of the game. But this year's team's different because they find ways to win. Their defense steps up. Their bullpen, their pitching, big outs. They just step up in big situations. And that's why you got to feel so good about this team, too, the rest of the way. Because this team doesn't shy away from the pressure spots. And it showed again last night. So, 50 wins on the season. Can't believe I'm saying that. 50-17. And I got to admit, 50-17 sounds great. But somebody else today, I have an app on Bleacher Report, and they posted, this team has won 50 of their 67 games this season. That, to me, I think got me more like, wow, than the actual 50-17 record. Though they played 67 games this season, they've won 50 of them. That, to me, sounds even crazier than the 50-17 record. Maybe that's just me, but that, to me, sounds crazier. And it's the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. But 50 wins, first team to that mark this year. And history tells us, earlier you get to 50 wins, the better your season's going to play out. And I have a little bit of history here to tell us. I have a couple teams throughout the years. Actually, not a couple, but a lot of teams. I have about 16 teams, 15 teams on here I have that I want to read off to you. Not going to go in depth with each team. Couple teams I will a little bit more. But I want to tell you, and I want to show you this, because the Yankees right now, but like I said, by June 21st, today, June 21st, actually the first official day is summer. Yankees are 50-17, have a 12-game lead on Toronto. They're 29-7 at home, 21-10 on the road. Their run differential, runs scored 344, runs allowed 199. That's a run differential of plus 145. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They got the win yesterday, which obviously bounced back after a loss, so they're on a win streak of 1. Against the East this season, 25-11, Central 17-5, West 5-1. Interleague, they are 3-0. Now, here's what I'm going to show you. Here are some of the teams that over the years have gone off to quick starts. So over the years, here are the fastest to 50 wins prior to the 18th loss. So New York Giants in 1912. And I know I'm going way back, but this just is history. This is basically all of baseball. The New York Giants in 1912 started off 50-11. They lost in the World Series against the Red Sox. So they got there, they lost. I believe they lost in 7 games according to Baseball Reference. The 2001 Mariners started off 50-14. We all know that team. Yankee fans know that team very well because the Yankees knocked them out. They lost in the ALCS versus the Yankees, and the Yankees won in 5 games, 4-1. 1939 Yankees. A lot of people consider this one of the greatest Yankee teams, up there with the 98 team. Yankees went 50-14 to start the year, and they won the World Series that year versus the Reds, and they swept them 4-0. 1902, Pirates 50-15 and won the NL pennant. Now, I believe 1903, is the first official World Series. So they won the NL pennant. I don't really know how far they went, but this was 1902. This was prior to a lot of the big championship and World Series stuff and playoffs, but they did win the NL pennant. The 1902 Pirates at 50-15. Now, the 1928 Yankees, 50-16, won the World Series versus the Cardinals, and they swept them 4-0. The 1907 Cubs, 50-16, won the World Series versus the Tigers, and they swept them 4-0. Now, here comes the 2022 Yankees. They're 50-17, plus 12 games. They're 12 games up in the AL East. 1998 Yankees. Here we go. The 98 Yankees. They started off 50-17. So the Yankees are right on the pace of the 98 Yankees. 98 Yankees won the World Series versus the Padres, and they swept them 4-0. Now, the 1955 Dodgers, they started off 50-17, won the World Series versus the Yankees in 7 games. That hurts to say a little bit, but a great season for the Brooklyn Dodgers. 1929 A's, 50-17, won the World Series versus the Cubs 4-1. 1904 Giants, 50-17, won the NL pennant. And this was actually the year where there was no World Series because the New York Giants actually boycotted. So there was no World Series. Despite them starting off to this record, there was no World Series because they boycotted. And then in 1913, the A's went 50-17, won the World Series versus the New York Giants 4-1. Now, the New York Giants, by the way, this is the New York Giants. They played at the Polo Grounds. This is not the football Giants. This is the New York Giants for baseball. And I'm sure many of you know this, especially if you're a New York sports fan. That's why the New York Giants are called the New York Football Giants, because the New York Giants and both New York Giants teams are in there, so technically it's the New York Football Giants, so then people wouldn't get confused of which Giants you're talking about. That's why technically, on paper, it's the New York Football Giants is the name of the team, and the New York Giants was the baseball team, and they did that so you didn't get confused of which team was which. And that also correlates all with the Brooklyn Dodgers and all that, and then, Polo Grounds, and then Citi Field now is a lot like I believe it's Ebbets Field, I think is what Citi Field's supposed to resemble. I think that's it. I think that's the field where Brooklyn Dodgers used to play, and that's how the Mets got their colors, was a mix of the Giants and the Dodgers, so that's orange and blue, and Mets, and, it all correlates into one big thing. So back in the early 1900s, there was a lot of history, there was a lot of stuff going on in New York with different sports teams, and now it all kind of correlates to the New York Football Giants now, why their name is what it is, the Mets. So it's pretty cool how it all correlates. But you're going way back, and I know I'm going way back. I mean, this goes all the way back to 1902, and I got to thank Baseball Reference because I found this. I did some number crunching. So I started off with a couple teams. I knew off the top of my head 98 Yankees were great. I knew off the top of my head 2001 Mariners were great. I know the 1939 Yankees were, 1939 Yankees were great because they've been talking about it a little bit on Yes about some of the great Yankee teams, so I knew that off the top of my head. I just had to look up the records. The other teams, I had to do some research on Baseball Reference, did a little bit of Googling, did a little bit of CBS Sports Network, found a couple teams on there. So this was kind of a mix of all different things of how I came to this list. But it's going all the way back, I know, to 1902. That's more than 100 years ago. But it just shows you when teams get off to quick starts. These are 12 teams that I have. I have 12 teams on this list. New York Giants, Mariners, Yankees, Pirates, Yankees again, Cubs, Yankees, Dodgers, A's, Giants, A's again. Out of the 12 teams on this list, 7 of them have won the World Series, and 8 of the 7 got there. 7 won it. The only team not winning it was the New York Giants when they started out 50-11. They lost to the Red Sox in 1912. 4-3 in a 7-game series. So that is my history there on teams off to a quick start. So history tells us, and the 90 Yankees, by the way, what do they got? 114-48. So if the Yankees keep on this pace, they're winning 114 games. Not saying they are, but I'm just saying this is the pace they're going on. It's a special pace for a team that a lot of people thought is the greatest team of all time. And that Mariners team is weird because that Mariners team I believe that Mariners team was the year after they got rid of Griffey and Rodriguez, I think. A-Rod. I think that was it. So that Mariners team had neither of those guys on. And all those years with Ken Griffey, you would think the Mariners would win all these, would be that dominant team. That wasn't the case, actually. And it was the Mariners without Griff that 2001. Now, that Mariners team, a lot of people still to this day, not really believe, but they overachieved in the regular season. They, without a doubt, overachieved in the regular season. Because even in the ALDS, they won in 5 games against the Indians. So it wasn't even like they smoked them. Like, coming out of the regular season with that 2001 Mariners team, a lot of people felt like, oh, this team's going to dominate the postseason. They didn't. They lost in 5 games to the Yankees in the round before. They barely got past the Indians in 5 games in the ALDS. So, obviously, ALDS being a 5-game series. So, but that's a team, that's out of this entire list, the one eyesore is that 2001 Mariners team. Because that team was so good in the regular season. And they were just terrible. And they got embarrassed against the Yankees in the ALCS that year. But you look at the teams on this list, 1939 Yankees won the World Series. 1928 Yankees won the World Series. 1907 Cubs won the World Series. 1998 Yankees won the World Series. 1955 Dodgers won the World Series. A's in 1929 won the World Series. And 1913 A's won the World Series. So the 7 of 12 teams I have in this list, like I mentioned, all won the World Series. 8 of them got there. 7 of them won it. So history tells us starts like this. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but starts like this translate to some pretty special outcomes for each of these franchises. So that's what I got for the New York Yankees and the great start to the season and hopefully the continued success for this team because this team is special and very, very, very special. And it continues to show night in and night out when they go out there and win games like they did last night. So, a great win last night for the Yankees. They find themselves 50-17. And you look at them overall, best record in baseball by 6 games up on the Mets. And so on and so forth. It goes Astros, Dodgers, Padres are your top 5 in all of baseball. So, special start to the year. Hope it continues. Yankees race tonight. Nasty Nestor on the mound. And like I said, you're just continuing the winning ways. Winning. This team just wins. And that's what I got to say. Like, this team just wins. Like, that's how it really, there's not much else I could put it. They just win. They're going to find ways to win. It might not always be the flashiest wins ever. It might not be the 8-0 where you got, 3 guys in the lineup going 4 for 5, but they're going to win games. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters is winning baseball games. And the Yankees continue to do that at a very, very, very consistent rate. So, first team in the MLB this year to reach 50 wins, and hopefully the Yankees are the first team to reach 60, 70, 80, 90, and then 100, and so on and so forth. That's what we'd all love to see. All right, so that's what I got for the New York Yankees and their dominance so far through the first 67 games. Coming up next here, or coming up right now, we're going to get to Max Scherzer and his start. The second best team in all baseball, the second best team in all New York. Crazy I'm saying that. It really is wild that we're sitting here talking about the second best team in all baseball is also the second best team in New York. That's wild. Like, it just shows you how dominant both New York baseball teams have been. Both New York baseball teams are on top of all of baseball. Just think about that for a second. Like, the Yankees are playing great, and the Mets are playing great. And them two are 1-2 on top of baseball. Yankees 1, Mets 2. So it just shows you how good they've been. All right, so we're going to get to Max Scherzer here. And he's obviously on the 15-day IL with the oblique injury. He came out of his start against St. Louis, which he was actually pitching really well that game. Felt something, came out, and he hasn't pitched since May 18th. So it's been over a month he's been out, and it was obviously I think it was a 4 to 6 week timeline at first. So to be honest with you, he's actually in that timeline because 4 weeks was a month. That was June 18th. He started throwing a little bit prior to that, and now today he's going to have a rehab start. And if everything goes well today, he'll be back. And what's so big for this Mets team is they just got through their toughest stretch of the season. And they did it without Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer, right? deGrom's still out. Who knows when he's going to be back? He's in a very interesting spot because you haven't really heard much on him. You've heard a lot more on Max Scherzer, not as much on deGrom. But with Scherzer coming back, that's huge. And I think why Met fans should feel so good about where they're at is because they're They're winning, and they're winning without DeGrom and Scherzer. And everybody at the beginning of the season pictured DeGrom and Scherzer at the top of the rotation for the New York Mets. And we're all saying, like, and myself included, right? We all pictured at the beginning of the season where the Mets and Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom would be dominating, going up and down lineups. They haven't pitched. There has not been one rotation this year where both DeGrom and Scherzer pitched. DeGrom has not thrown a single pitch this season. Scherzer got injured May 18th. It looks like he'll be back, if everything goes well today, at the rehab start. But this is where Met fans, you got to feel good at where you're at right now, like I mentioned a little bit before. But you got to feel good about where you're at right now. But you got to feel even better about where you're going to be because of Max Scherzer coming back, because of Jacob DeGrom hopefully shortly thereafter coming back. I mean, you're on a pace here, just like the Yankees are right on pace with the 98 Yankees. Mets are right on pace with the 86 Mets, which I think a lot of Met fans believe, no argument, is the best Met team of all time. And when you're on pace with a team that good, and you've done it without your two best pitchers up to this point, Scherzer obviously getting hurt in May, and DeGrom not even touching a mound yet, not even pitching at Citi Field yet, you got to feel good about where you're at without those guys and where you're going to be with those guys. And one of them's going to return as long as the rehab start goes today. And I don't think people realize how much, and you got to give credit up and down the rotation. Even guys like David Peterson and Tyler McGill giving you big innings when you need them. They might not be the best pitchers in the world, but they've stepped up. They've given you innings. They've stepped up into a bigger role, not the role they expected to be in to start the year, and they've done great. Look at David Peterson yesterday. Went out there, was great. I know it's the Marlins. I know they're not an offensive threat in a major way, but he did what he needed to do. He's had a couple rough starts this year, but he stepped up when he needed to, and he got the win yesterday. Look at guys like Taijuan Walker. He's been great this year. This year has looked a lot like first half of last year Taijuan Walker. Struggled in the second half, but this year has been great in the first half. If you're a Met fan, you just got to hope this carries into the second half, unlike it did last year where it was a lot of first half success, little second half success. Guys like Chris Bassett have done well. And Bassett has had a couple starts where he's gone rocked up and he's gone, beat up a little bit. But he's also had a couple starts where he's been really good, and he's had a couple starts where he's filled in the shoes for Max Scherzer and DeGrom, and he's really looked like that ace guy while they've been out. Carlos Carrasco, right? Another guy. Hasn't been perfect, but has done a job and has stepped up in a bigger role than what the Mets expected him to be in. And he's done well. And the Mets stand here today with a record that is way above 500. Like I said, second best record in all of baseball. And they find themselves in a spot where now they're just getting their pitchers back. Now they're just getting DeGrom back, or Scherzer back. And hopefully soon thereafter, you get DeGrom back. Mets are 45-24, 21 games above 500. And they've done that. And they're 21 games above with missing Scherzer and DeGrom for most of this time. So with Scherzer coming back, as a Met fan, you just got to hope everything goes well with the rehab start. And because obliques are weird. Obliques are finicky. And for baseball in general, for baseball, you want Scherzer back. Because what he brings every 5 days to the mound, in terms of electricity, in terms of stuff, in terms of selling tickets, he brings that energy. Max Scherzer, Jacob DeGrom, Garrett Cole, Nasty Nestor, those are the guys in New York. Those are the pitchers that are going to sell tickets. People are going to buy tickets to watch you pitch. And when you're a pitcher that people buy tickets to watch you, that's when you know you are that big time pitcher. People buy tickets to watch people. People are going to buy tickets to watch Jacob DeGrom. Same thing with the Yankees. People are going to buy tickets for Garrett Cole and Nasty Nestor. You might not buy a ticket because you say, I want to watch Tyler McGill tonight. You buy a ticket because you want to watch the Mets. But people are going to buy tickets to watch Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom. So getting a guy like that back is not only good for the team, but it's also good for the sport, getting a big-time player back. You know, we talk about a lot this year with the sport in terms of where it's at, in terms of a young audience, in terms of people watching it. Attendance has actually been up this year. It's been pretty wild. A lot of people, and you hope that's because of, we're getting out of this COVID thing. So you hope that's also because, there's no more protocols in stadiums. Last year they started the year with, mask requirements, and then they started the year with, limited capacity. Then they got to then they got the full capacity, and people still weren't completely showing up. But I'll tell you what, the crowd's been great. And I know it looks like I might be running off the track here in terms of on topic, but Scherzer's going to bring that too. That big crowd at Citi Field, Scherzer, DeGrom, and you're getting this right now too. And for right at the right part of the season, you're starting to get healthier again for the New York Mets. You got to hope yesterday Jeff McNeil, that injury was nothing major, but Scherzer's coming back. You hope DeGrom's right there behind him. And the Mets just got through one of the toughest parts of their schedule. The Dodgers, the Padres, the Angels, the Brewers. And now they do have 2 games against the Astros. And then they have 2 more later this month. But you got to realize, look, sure, they still got, 2 games against the Astros and stuff. 4 games total in this month. But you got to still feel good at where you're at, because you look at the month of July, it really eases up. The Texas Rangers, who have not been great this year, they've been better, a little bit better recently, but still not where they want to be. Cincinnati Reds, we all know they've been bad. The Marlins. Then the Braves, who are really good. Braves are good. That's going to be a fun series. But then you have the Cubs, Padres again, and then the Yankees, and then you finish out with the Marlins. So you have a couple tough series. The Yankees, Padres, Braves are tough. But Cubs, Marlins, Reds, those should be easy. Or Rangers, too. Those should be 2 out of 3 or 3-game sweeps. Actually, I believe that Marlins series is 4 games. So similar to what you just did with the Marlins yesterday. Take 3 out of 4 against them. Because that's what this Mets team does. This Mets team's not completely like the Yankees in terms of the Yankees go out and sweep teams. Mets just find ways, and they get 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. And that's why their record is where it's at. Same thing with the Yankees. Now, that's why the Yankees' record is 50-17, because they win. They get on these big win streaks. They win a lot. They win these series. They sweep these series. They win these 4-game sets, 3-game sets. They do what they need to do. Mets are that kind of team that, look, they're not going to sweep a ton of series, but they're going to take 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. And that's going to get them first in the NL East, and that's going to get them up there in the best record, some of the best records in all of baseball. So you're getting Scherzer back if everything goes well today against the rehab start, with the rehab start today. And, and you're just getting over your worst, your toughest stretch. Now, you still have the Astros, like I said, for 2 games today, and then 2 games later in the month, Tuesday and Wednesday, June 28th and 29th. So those games will obviously be tough against a good Astros team, which the Yankees will welcome to the stadium on Thursday. But needless to say, this is big for the Mets, big for their rotation, big for their season, as if they want to continue this pattern of winning. And you just got to hope, if you're a Met fan, that you get DeGrom back soon. Once DeGrom went down, I said that DeGrom probably would most likely be back either in June-ish or after the All-Star break. And it seems as if, and rightfully so, why rush him back before the All-Star break? Because the Mets schedule, I don't know exactly when the All-Star break starts. I believe it's, you can probably look at the schedule. The All-Star break starts, when does it start? So what is it? Sunday. So they'll have 5 days off. So the All-Star break, their last game will be the 17th. So you really look at their schedule prior to the All-Star break. There's no need to rush him back. Because in the month of July, they'll have the Rangers, Reds, Marlins, and then they'll have 3 against the Braves. Then that's tough. But then you have 4 against the Cubs, and boom, that's the All-Star break. So there's no need to rush him back. If you get him back after the All-Star break, that's when you start to get to the tough of your schedule. Padres for 3, then the Subway Series against the Yankees, then the Marlins again. And then August isn't extremely difficult. You got a lot of NL East opponents in August. But then you have a tough 5 games come out of the All-Star break, with 3 against San Diego and 2 more against the Yankees. The one positive to that is you don't got to go to San Diego for that, then come back home and play the Yankees. You at least are home for all 5 of those games. But coming out of the All-Star break, you have a tough 5 games. So if you can hold DeGrom there and bring him back, that'd probably be the best thing for the Mets. I would not rush him back for the All-Star break because it's not like if you were just entering a stretch of games right now where you had the Dodgers, Padres, teams like that, Braves, who have been hot. I know they cooled off a little bit against Chicago over the weekend, but, they're still a very good team. Then you could maybe say, all right, let's try to bring DeGrom back. But there's no need to. Your schedule really weakens up here going into the All-Star break starting on July 17th, which will be the first day. So that's how I see it. But it's very good to see Scherzer coming back for the Mets. And, I'm sure we'll hear how that starts today. And just to give him a couple of his stats, just to, show you again what he brings to the table for this Mets team this year so far. In his starts that he's made, he's 5-1 with a 2.54 ERA, 59 strikeouts, and a whip of .95. So a very good player for the Mets. And if you're a Met fan, just hope that everything comes out today clean. And he's back on the mound on Sunday, which would be against the Marlins. And I just looked at that game. So, and I'm going to read this quick article here, too, about Scherzer. Then we'll get to the New York Sports Update and stuff. But that game against the Marlins, and I know a lot of people feel this way. And to a certain extent, I'm 50-50 because I'm able to watch the games on Amazon Prime. I'm able to watch the games on Apple TV Plus, and I was able to watch the one Yankee game on Peacock. But I understand it is frustrating because I don't like the streaming services. Like Apple TV Plus, their broadcast terrible. Terrible. I mean, it's so bad. The Peacock, it's very good, but a lot of people got to pay for Peacock. And Amazon Prime, even if you're able to watch it, it's always cutting in and out. I don't know if anybody else feels that, but it's always cutting in and out. Like, you're watching the game, and then it's like every, 2 innings, all of a sudden it starts to just show that loading thing, and it, boots you out, and you got to go back in. Then you're, a minute behind on the game. And I'm there with my scorebook, and I got to, obviously be up to date on the game, and I'm there with my scorebook doing the game. And then I realize, if it pauses, it gets paused. And then, then you start getting updates on your phone of stuff that happened prior to what you're even watching because it's so behind. So I'm not a big fan of it. Not a big fan of streaming services. But why I bring this up is because Scherzer, if everything goes well with the rehab start, he will be slated to start Sunday, which would be against the Marlins, like I said, in Miami. That's a 12 Eastern start on Peacock. And Scherzer's first start was the Friday night game in D.C. as a Met, because McGill got the first game on Thursday of that series, that first opening day, because DeGrom was out, so McGill got the start on opening day. And then Scherzer's first start was on Apple TV+. So many Met fans couldn't watch it. His debut for the Mets, a lot of people were frustrated, couldn't watch it. And now his first start back is going to be on Peacock. So now many Met fans probably going to be even more frustrated because they're not going to be able to watch his first start back. Now, Mets-Marlins Sunday afternoon game in June is not going to mean a ton, but when Scherzer's back on the mound, Met fans are going to want to see that. But now that's on Peacock, so who even knows how many Met fans will be able to access that? It's like the MLB's purposely trying to put these games. I mean, they can't, obviously, nobody predicted a Scherzer injury, but they can't. But it's like putting Scherzer, the game 2 on Apple TV Plus of that opening week series. And then now, first start back is going to be on Peacock. Scherzer has not had the TV luck where everyone's able to access it. So just find that a little interesting. But the streaming services are weird. It's just such a weird, it really is weird because there's like 20 or 30 Yankee games this year that are on networks other than Yes. And I don't mean I don't mean like ESPN or Fox or something where like everyone can access that because those are just your typical cable channels or typical TV channels. No one's got to really, that's not anything special. But like Amazon Prime, or even if the Yankee game's on like a My 9 or Pix 11, that's not bad. That's still access. Everyone has that. But it's just terrible. Like the Amazon, it's all over the place. It really is. And the Peacock broadcast, like I said, was good, but some people got to pay for it. And are you really going to pay for it for one game amongst 162? I was able to watch it, and I had no issue with it. It was weird, because I was able to watch the game, and it didn't ask me to pay for it, because I watched the Olympics on Peacock, and because some of those games are on there. I had no issue with paying. I just went in, I logged in to my account, and I pressed to watch the game, and it happened, and it was a good game. It was a good game. They won in 10 innings, and it was a good broadcast. Apple TV Plus very good graphics, broadcast stinks. Broadcast is terrible. Awful. They got like 3 people on that broadcast, and none of them know what they're talking about. The graphics are great, though. Graphics are great, can't deny that. But even the graphics too, like the hit probability and stuff, graphics are great. But the broadcasting, terrible. But there's not many games this year. It seems like every other day, it seems like the game's on a different channel. It's like a manhunt to find what channel the Yankees game are, and that shouldn't be the case because it's the Yankees. They should be on a consistent channel. I know, the Yankees, big brand, all this money. They want to try to televise them in many different avenues as they can, but it's frustrating as a fan when you could just watch it on Yes every night, and instead they got all these different channels. So I just wanted, I know I'm kind of rambling now, but I just find it interesting now. Scherzer's first start as a Met, Apple TV+. And if everything goes well today, first start back would be on Peacock. So Met fans are having a tough time accessing Scherzer starts. Anyway, let's get to the New York sports update and finish things off here today. I know I kind of went on that 10-minute ramble, but it has been a big topic around baseball and streaming services in general. I mean, Amazon Prime now is going to start to do NFL games. They're going to start to do Thursday night games. So Thursday night games, if you don't have Amazon Prime, you can't watch a Thursday night football game. And I know as a Jet fan, they have one game on Thursday night late in the season. That's way out from now. But like if you're a football fan, your team's got like 2 or 3 Thursday night games, or you can't watch one of them. That stinks. Because that's Amazon Prime now is doing that too. Streaming services are starting to take over sports. It's frustrating, but it's kind of where we're going. I was talking to somebody the other day about this. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. And I probably would be, but if like a couple years down the road, if the Super Bowl turns into like a streaming service because of all the money you're bringing in, because people got to pay for the streaming service. You don't know how much money that would generate. It's almost like UFC. That's all pay-per-view. You got to pay to watch all that stuff. It's the TV. Like, even, I know everybody, like, back in like the 90s and when TVs really were first, kind of coming up, you used to have like your couple channels. Now it's all over the place. You got all these streaming services. You got these games on 10 different networks. It's all over the place. So anyway, let's get to the New York sports update and the rest of the baseball and sports and all that good stuff. So today we got the Reds and Dodgers, Marlins, Rockies, Cubs, Pirates, Nationals, Orioles, Tigers, Red Sox, Braves, Giants, Twins, Guardians, Phillies, Rangers, Blue Jays, White Sox, Cardinals, Brewers, Mets, Astros. We'll get to that in a second. Royals, Angels, Diamondbacks, Padres, and the A's, Mariners. Mets, Astros today. Mets come into today's game 45-24. Astros come into today's game 41-25. Mets got Trevor Williams on the mound. He's 1-3 with a 3.53 ERA. And the Astros got Jose Urquidy on the mound. He's 5-3 with a 4.99 ERA. Over-under set at 9. 8:10 p.m. Eastern, Sportsnet Southwest. You can find this on. You also find it on SNY. Yankees, Rays tonight. Yankees come into tonight's game 50-17. Rays come into tonight's game 36-31. Tonight's game goes on 7:10 Eastern on Yes Network. Yankees got Nasty Nestor on the mound. He's 6-2 with a 1.94 ERA. Rays have not announced their starter for tonight, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they do a bullpen game, if they go with a regular starter. We'll see how that goes. But Nasty Nestor's on the mound, and that's all that matters for the New York Yankees. As for fantasy baseball, in my main league, I am down 42-34. Didn't have many guys going yesterday, but got my main lineup going today. Got Kyle Gibson, Tony Gonsolin on the mound. By the way, I made some roster moves. So I put Yoan Moncada on the 10-day IL. He was placed on the 10-day IL with a strained right hamstring. So he's on the IL, and I picked up Hunter Dozier. And the reason I did this, because it's not a very household name. He's got 110 fantasy points this season. He's batting .259, 27 runs scored, 7 home runs, 22 RBIs. He has 2 stolen bases. His position rank 16. He averages 1.9 points per game. So if you want, you can round that up to 2. Reason I did is because Yoan Moncada was only third baseman. So I picked up Hunter Dozier to fill in that spot. And I am going with, he's an outfielder, third baseman, first base, and DH. So he gives me a lot of flexibility. So picked him up. Hopefully Moncada's stay isn't long, because Moncada, he is batting .189. He's not had a very good season, but he's been hurt a lot. He was hurt, and then he got activated. Now he's hurt again. He's got some talent, but it's just a matter of staying healthy and putting a good product out there. But Hunter Dozier probably give me a little bit more consistency, and he gives me a lot of options. I could play him in outfield, third, first, or DH. So I like to have those guys that can play multiple positions. And, so that's that. That was my roster move I made. In my other league, I got to probably make another roster move. I will. But I'm currently winning 31-10 in my other league, and I've got no pitching going today. But Tyler O'Neill's on the IL, so I'm going to have to put him on there. Probably look to pick up another outfielder because I'm actually short on outfield in this league as it is to begin with. So probably pick up another outfielder. Tyler O'Neill's out, so I'll look for another outfielder. Brandon Drury could be an option. He gives me a lot of options, outfield, second base, third base. I could look at Brian Reynolds as an option. He's outfield. Or even Austin Hayes, who's actually a very good season for the Orioles. But most likely, I'll probably go with Brandon Drury just because of the flexibility he gives me. I could play him in a ton of different places, but I'll figure that out soon here. So, and like I said, my main league, I got two guys going today. I've got Kyle Gibson and Tony Gonsolin. So, 7-3 and 9-1. So what is that? I'm 16-4 total in fantasy baseball this year. So that's it's a pretty good start to the season if you ask me. I always said that. I've always said that. I'm so much better at fantasy baseball, basketball, and hockey than I am at fantasy football. I was talking to somebody yesterday about that. It's like fantasy hockey, fantasy football, it's a lot more luck. Fantasy football. It's so much more luck. Because, let's be real here. You're setting up your lineup for one day. Sure, you might have a guy going Thursday or Monday night, but that's not going to make or break your week. Unless if you have a quarterback or a running back or somebody going on a Thursday night or a Monday night. That could definitely play a big role. But if you got a kicker going on a Thursday night and nobody going Monday night, and you got your whole roster Sunday, it all comes down to one day. So that's why it's so hard, because you think about all these situations, and then sometimes people make these last-second moves, and that guy steps up in a big way and puts up 20 points, and then the other guy does nothing. You're like, well, I mean, who would have thought of that? Who would have thought of putting that guy in? Or sometimes you have this random guy out of the middle of nowhere score 30 one week. Somebody has to pick him up because a guy's injured, puts him in his line at 30. Like, who would have thought that would have happened? So it is some skill, but it's a lot of luck. Baseball, I will tell you, and all that stuff, it requires a lot more thought because you got to switch your lineup every single day. And it also goes into, I go into like pitching matchups and stuff like that. Like football, it's kind of just throw the guys out there and see what happens. It's much, much harder. But anyway, that will do it for the podcast here today. Another good one in the books. And Yankees, Mets tonight. Yankees against the Rays, Mets against the Astros. So looking for a Yankee win. That would be 51 on the season. And that will do it for the podcast here today. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.